This week, a well-established alliance disbands, Winter Coalition and Snuffed Out clash in low sec, a budget Rome goes ISK positive from dropping on a drop, FI.RE Coalition, PIBC and Red Menace Coalition continue to find reasons to shoot each other, and the Imperium present an unusual home defense doctrine. Hello pod people, I'm Frost and this is your weekly EVE Online update. Welcome back. So as always, we start the show by announcing the winners of the Scope Syndication skin giveaway, which was the last two skins for the Healer Gila. And my winners were Asvalten Bern and Galaris. Actually, both pilots have been winners in the past, so they're now double winners. So congratulations to them. It is a random draw. I do use a random generator, but there you go. So once again, congratulations to Asvalten and Galaris. Now, I have a new skin. It is the Stratios skin. I gave one away last week on the Twitch show. I have two more to give away and more details on that later in the show. Okay, so let's jump into the main news. The main news, let me go up into my box for this, is that Evictus are disbanding. Now, this came as a surprise to absolutely everybody. It was announced a couple of days ago. Now, Evictus have been around a while. They've been around since 2012, so almost a whole decade. They've always been relevant in the game. They've always been around. They started off in Proviblock, so they were in Providence. Then moved into, I think it was Catch with Legacy Coalition. And then after the Papi Imperium conflict, they moved in with PIBC and lived in Esoteria and Feta Bolles. And I commented on Evictus a number of times in their encounters with FI.RE Coalition. Now, the reason for the alliance disbanding isn't any drama of any kind. It is simply the leader, Francis, has family commitments. And the other leadership members as well also have kind of real life commitments, which makes it very, very difficult for them to run the alliance effectively. And you do need membership present kind of on a very regular basis, and it is very time consuming. And so the decision was made regrettably to close down Evictus. Obviously the corporations are all kind of still adjusting to this. The good news is that they have routes out of Feta Bolles and Esoteria. Obviously, offers are now being made to all the corporations as they work out what they're going to do next. Now, this is going to happen overnight. As you can see, if my pen is working, there we go. You see that the Alliance corporation and member count is still very steady. This is going to be a planned thing that's probably going to happen over about 5 to 6 weeks. Obviously, we've got the holiday season coming up, which is going to mean that a lot of players are away from the game for family things. And so this is going to roll in probably to kind of early Jan, to give plenty of time for people to move out in a way that doesn't cause any grief to anybody. So my best wishes to Francis, and obviously Francis is going to stay in the game, but not in a leadership role. And and so hopefully all these corporations will find a new home and things will continue. But all the same, it's always a shame when you kind of lose an established alliance like this. The more groups we have in the game, the better. Right, so that's kind of my news with regards to Evictus. Then we're going to go over to .land and we're going to talk about Lonetrek. So I talked a little bit about this in my Twitch show, and particularly the system of Otsasai, which has been coming up in the news quite regularly as a flashpoint between Snuffed Out and Fraternity. And what it is basically Snuffed Out have been dropping fortizars regularly in Otsasai. And I've got one battle report here where the fortizar was actually destroyed at the drop rather than on the anchoring. So if you remember your fortizar mechanics, you drop a fortizar, it is then vulnerable whilst it is being dropped. And then after that, there's a 24-hour timer before it can then anchor. So this was during the drop, I believe. Now, Fraternity were able to flash form for this, but it did cost them a fair bit. 44 billion in munions, which allowed Snuffed Out to use the meme of HACs ammo for this one. So a lot of hacks were thrown at this in order to kill the fortizar and also serve some munions. And then it happened all over again with another fortizar that was dropped, and this was a few days later, I think a couple of days later. And this one, things were very different because instead of just being Snuffed Out and Fraternity being the kind of the main protagonists in this, we had the initiative show up as well. And they put a real spanner in the work for Fraternity. So Fraternity came in two big fleets. One was the English-speaking FCs, and one was the Chinese-speaking FCs leading them. So one was Munins and one was Cerberuses. The initiative then showed up in Munins, and excuse me, sorry about that, had a little bit of a coughing fit, so I thought I'd have a cut. So where was I? I've completely forgotten. Right, I was talking about the initiative, and so the initiative brought a bunch of Munins to assist Snuffed Out. So Snuffed Out came in Macarials. They were kind of staying pretty close to the Fortizar and keeping control there, but the initiative were able to kind of push off the Munins and the Serb fleets from Fraternity, and what this meant was that Fraternity were unable to maintain a damage cap on the Fortizar, and so the timer slowly started ticking down. And in the meantime, they were kind of trading lodges, you could see with the initiative on both sides here. So you've got Simmies over here and Simmies over here, so you can see the trade happening. But by the time the lodge had been cleared off of the initiative, the timer had expired and the Fortizar anchored. What this now means is that Snuffed Out have the ability to project into Pureblind and Tribute with Dread Bombs if they want to. I mean, I think they could do that anyway because there was a station there. I mean, there's those stations that they can stage from anyway, but at least this way then now they also have cloning capabilities as well. But mainly Snuffed Out dropped these forts just to create content and to create fights as they did in this situation here. So unfortunately, it was the same kind of losses again for Fraternity, only this time they didn't achieve the objective and the Fortizar was anchored. Right, now we're going to move over to Geminate. In Geminate, I want to point out a kill that happened here, and it was a Sin, and this Sin was destroyed by a roaming Stabber fleet from Goonswarm. And so obviously they became very is-positive with this, but what actually happened that was interesting is the way in which it happened. So this fleet was roaming around Geminate, and I think this is running now, yeah. And so what they did is they spotted a Loki jump through a gate. And so they saw the Loki then warp off to a location. So they managed to spot that, and so they gave chase and they warped after the Loki. And what actually happened is when they landed on grid, there was a Fraternity Black Ops drop on a Pandemic Horde Ratter. And so they basically ended up sort of interrupting a drop there that was ongoing. Here we go, you see them landing on grid right now. And suddenly they see this Sin and they see this Loki trying to shoot this Ratter. And so they just kind of jumped in on the action and got on a kill. So there you go. So that was a very kind of lucky roam and a very unfortunate drop for Fraternity there. So obviously you can watch this video in your own time. I link all these videos in the description below so that you can check them out for yourself. Right, so there you go. So that was a drop on a drop by Goonswarm on Fraternity who were dropping on Horde. So then what are we going to talk about? Okay, we're going to talk about Outer Passage and Test specifically. What is the concern with Test? And let me see if I can just grab this rather than scroll. If we go all the way down to the bottom here, if you remember, Test have been out in Outer Passage now for a month or two, probably a good couple of months, I think, obviously since the end of the Pappy Imperium conflict. So I would imagine it's probably October they moved back up there. I can't remember exactly the date. The main thing I want to point out though is that, oops, my doodles are left over from there, is that we have three corporations that have left. One has gone to Pandemic Legion, which is Brave Operations. Here has gone over to Pandemic Horde. And then Incognito, we don't actually know where they're going yet. But the main thing to point out with these three groups is that Brave Operations, you can see their all-time rank here, are very active as a PvP corporation. And then it's the same with here, who are in the kind of top 20 all-time rank. And then also Incognito, you know, who are not slouches by any means, you know, with you know, still quite a high ranking and with lots of ships destroyed. So we're seeing a lot of at least three PvP corporations have now left Test Alliance, Please Ignore, to go and look for content. And the main reason is that if you go back to the universe map, Outer Passage is right at the back of the drone lands. And so the only kind of content that Test Alliance has really been able to get has been kind of assisting fire all the way down here, down into Catch and Impasse and Feta Bolles and Esoteria, which is a long way from home. And then occasionally they've kind of been dropping over this way as well. to either try and assist to shoot Brave and Pureblind, etc. Although that was one particular corp of alliance rather than the whole alliance itself generally. But the main thing is that what you're seeing is that kind of being in the backwaters and being in that rebuild process, it's now reaching a point where the PvP corps are going, no, it looks like we need some content now. We've done our rebuilding, we want to get back into it. So we'll have to see how much that affects test in the future. All right, so before I kind of move on to the south, because most of my news is in the south this week, we're going to do our giveaway. And once again, I forgot a keyword. Excuse me. So the skin this week, here it is. It is the Stratios. And I have to say the Scope Syndication skin always does look good on Stratios. Although to be honest, the Stratios is such a great looking ship. And yeah, any skin just looks great on it. But there you go. So we have, I have 2 Scope Syndication skins to give away, and I have to think of a keyword. So I'm not quite sure what keyword I am going to use. I'm going to use roam. There you go. Because obviously we had the stabber fleet from Goon Swarm. So let's use roam as our keyword. You can use roam or roaming. It's up to you, and then just make up a sentence with the word roaming in the comments, in the YouTube comments. And then the cutoff date for your comment will be Friday, the 17th of December, 1800 UTC. And then I'll generally do the draw either late on the Friday or sometime on Saturday. So by Saturday evening, check your comments to see if I've replied to you and you've won your skin. Okay, right, so let's move on. So on catch, I just need to mention very quickly, obviously we talked about Sigma Grindset and how Sigma Grindset have kind of taken over from Dreadbomb. A lot of the corps have moved over from Dreadbomb into Sigma Grindset, and I spotted an alliance called Ligma Grindset, which is right here. Now it turns out I was correct because I was kind of speculating last week, and it's now been confirmed. Ligma Grindset is primarily alts, so sort of alpha tunes and things like that, as well as kind of industry focused stuff. But it is part of Sigma Grindset. So there you go, so a little clarification there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to mention Curse. Now obviously, if you remember a little while ago, with Curse, it was the initiative had some structures there. Everyone was very keen to point out to me in the initiative that the structure that was destroyed was originally a tickled structure, which was the last one to die, which is the Fortizar in Jormund, I think it's Jorund, there we go, in Jorund up there. It appears the Imperium are back in Curse. It looks like that a number of SIGs have deployed, that's special interest groups. And if we actually find a battle report here, we can see Goon Swarm here, along, or should I say the Imperium to be precise, going up against Fire Coalition after reinforcing an Astra House that belongs to Valkyrie Alliance, which is part of Fire Coalition. So we may see some more activity from the Imperium in Curse, and that'll be something to keep an eye on as to whether we see kind of the main FCs from the Imperium started to show up in Curse, in which case that becomes more of a deployment rather than just kind of the special interest groups. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. So then I need to mention as well, just a correction from last week. I talked about the Keepstar that was anchored in Wicked Creek, that it was the 4th Keepstar from Fire Coalition. I said it was a corporation from Unreal Alliance that had done all the work building it. It wasn't actually the case, that was my mistake. It was actually a corporation from XIX, Legion of Death, called PIBC. So that's TIEPERPEB. And so they are the ones responsible for building that Keepstar pretty much all on their own. So a correction on my part on that, my apologies for getting that wrong. Right, then in Tenerifice. So in Tenerifice, Lollipop Monopoly are kind of implanting themselves into this constellation and these 2 systems right here. And there was a fight that broke out over a Fortizar that was anchoring, that belonged to Lollipop Monopoly in PDF. And let me see if I can find the right battle report, which would be this one, I think. Yeah, and I was checking something earlier, so let me scroll back up. So you can see it was HACs Online mainly, a few Serbs, and then a whole bunch of Munins from a PIBC and Red Menace Coalition showed up for this one. And then on the flip side, Winter Co showed up along with Fraternity. So Fire Coalition brought HACs, Munins, I believe. And then this is why I scrolled down, I was just double checking. Inside Fraternity brought their Blarpies, So you can see their blaster fit harpies right here. Fraternity do like to use these when traveling south, as obviously they're much easier to move through wormholes, etc., if they want to go and assist. So rather than actually kind of just doing raw DPS, they kind of provide a support role, doing kind of heavy, kind of doing tackles, should I say. I was about to say heavy tackle, but they're not that good. They're just, you know, tackle that can do quite a lot of DPS as well. So that was that for Tenerifice. Now, what I need to mention is, in fact, is more about sort of Tenerifice and Immensia in general. So I'm really not on the case of my pen today. I keep forgetting to delete it. Let's go with a different color. Maybe that will help. So within Immensia and Tenerifice, we have now got a sub-coalition of fire that has been created. Now, before I give you the name of this sub-coalition, which is rather good, I have to say, it's made up of, let me see, Already Replaced, Black Rose, Celestial Empire, Lollipop Monopoly, and if we go to Tenerifice, Flying Dangerous. And they even have a logo, which I'm going to show you to you now, which is TireCo. So, which stands for, if I remember rightly, Tenerifice and Immensia Reunited Coalition. So it is a sub-coalition of fire called TireCo. So pretty cool. I like the graphic as well. So Fire Coalition has kind of been really expanding over the last few months. And they have got a lot of alliances within Fire Coalition. So these particular two regions have decided to create kind of a sub-coalition called Tire. So now we have Fire and Tire. So got to keep up with that. Now, this is really interesting because if I go back from Tenerifice, I go back to the universe map. If you know my show, it's kind of one of my sayings that nothing ever happens in Omist. Well, guess what? Shock horror. Something has happened in Omist. And if we jump into Omist, what you will see is that these systems in this region were originally kind of all owned by AOM. And now, out of the blue, who are called Vapor, that's their ticker, who were on mercenary contracts with PIBC, but I believe that mercenary contract has now expired because I've not seen them in any fleets with AOM or Vindictive or IOU recently, with IOU being Evictus recently. So I would imagine that has expired, but it looks like that part of the deal maybe of this whole mercenary contract was they'll get some regions, and it looks like they're trying to settle into Omist. And then on top of that, we have a group which I haven't spoken about in ages, which is Forsaken Empire. So Forsaken Empire, the last time I talked about them, if I remember correctly, they had a constellation up in Fountain when you kind of had the FI.RE, the Fountain Book Club, which is a number of kind of smaller alliances kind of set up shop in Fountain, kind of towards the tail end of the FI.RE Imperium conflict. TAPI Imperium conflict, sorry. And then we had FI.RE. So they popped up again. Looks like they found a little corner to try and establish themselves. And then we got Owl. I have no idea who Owl are. I didn't actually spot that before. Let me just click on that, see who they are. Stay Feral, Wolves of Anoikis. So there you go. I have know nothing whatsoever about Stay Feral. So if you are part of that alliance, please get in touch with me and let me know how you ended up in Omist and if you're related to any of these alliances. That would be really interesting to know. So there you go. Stuff is happening in Omist, and it looks like stuff is being reinforced as well. I haven't actually checked that either. I was just so shocked from seeing things being flipped out. Okay, so out of the blue iHubs are already being reinforced. So this may not be an easy settlement for them. So if I go back to Omist again, obviously that is on the border with Feta Bolles. And where I can't even see where that's linking into. Oh yeah, so it's linking into the kind of the renter area within Feta Bolles. So yeah, we'll have to see who's doing that work and who's actually doing the. I would imagine it's going to be Fire Coalition that are probably pushing buttons there and reinforcing systems. So there we go. I'm going to have to keep an eye on Olemiss now. Then I wanted to mention Impasse. So in Impasse, obviously it's the home of Red Menace Coalition. And as you can see here, these are all Red Menace Coalition alliances. So sorry in advance. Wrong, RHP, which moved down from Pureblind, OC3, which is Warriors of the Blood Gods, and Red Menace Coalition. So those are kind of the main, and Midas 22 down there in the red in the bottom corner. So those are kind of all the groups that make up Red Menace Coalition. Now, they're kind of being harassed fairly regularly by FI Coalition, but most specifically a SIG group. So there is a SIG group that has been created within FI Coalition called Boson Squad, and they are basically looking to fly kind of more blingy stuff. So you can see that they're dropping dreads, and they're also kind of flying things like nightmares. So kind of not usual kind of hack meta. Trying to do stuff a little bit different, and so they are kind of focusing on harassing in impasse. This is actually a really nice fit, active fit raw call. I was quite impressed when I saw this. Whoops, hang on, didn't want to do that. You got a capital ancillary shield booster. You got a Pith X type shield booster. You got a capital Concord shield booster, and then all the cap boosters to feed them. And also, was it a harmonizing link up there? Yeah, shield harmonizing charges as well. Unfortunately, when you've got that many dreads dropping on you and you're in a rock, your active tank's just not going to be able to handle that, although that is a pretty cool tank. So, yeah, so there you go. So that was the Rorqual dying. That wasn't really the kind of main story there. The main story was more the fact that FI Coalition are keeping themselves amused by creating these kind of elite PvP kind of SIG groups, flying the blingy stuff. So we'll have to see if they show up more often. Then in Feta Bolles, there was a fight over a content citadel. All the usual suspects of the south. Let me open this up. So you've got FI Coalition, then versus PIBC, Red Menace Coalition, and the Initiative show up as well. So the Initiative actually made up the big numbers there. It was all over a Fortizar, which I believe belonged to FI Coalition. It's not actually showing up in the battle report, but you're seeing kind of the main suspects all showing up for these fights. Also on the side, I can see good sacks in there as well. So you had Stain Roos coming in on the side of FI Coalition on those fights. So then I wanted to go just over to Delft to show you something very, very different. And this is basically a doctrine which I never expected to see used as a home defense doctrine by the Imperium. And it is basically a Black Ops drop. So it's mostly Marshals and Redeemers, and obviously Sins and Panthers. And what is interesting about this is that it looks like the Imperium are kind of adapting. So due to capitals being so expensive, it looks like that they are now looking at using Black Ops battleships as a home defense doctrine. So, I mean, Marshals are not cheap either, or Redeemers and so forth, but they obviously do project further than capitals do. They also do generally get out of bubbles a little bit better. And also, you know, they still have a pretty hefty tank and do a lot of damage. So there we go. So I never expected to see so many Marshals together at once. But that does look like a doctrine from the Imperium. So we'll have to see if they get used a little bit more often. But that is interesting how they are being used instead of your kind of usual carrier drop. So yeah, there you go. That really took me by surprise, that one. Then what else we can talk about? We'll talk about Cloud Ring very quickly. Once again, the triumvirate structures are providing content. This time it was an Athanor. The losses, you know, were still pretty big on both sides. The main issue here for We Form Volta and Greater Trash Community, who came and assisted Triumvirate, was that they brought EOSs, and then I think they had some support from there. We had Pandemic Horde, and NC Dot brought the HACs. And whilst they were able to kind of fend off and protect for quite a long while, the Imperium were able to constantly reinforce, obviously, while Pandemic Horde and Northern Coalition, NC Dot, having travelled from a long way away, were unable to do that. And so eventually they're able to grind down the ships until eventually the EOSs and the Apostles from Greater Trash Community were then in a position to be destroyed, even though they were on the structure. And this actually brought up a whole conversation on my Twitch show about Ansible jump gates and whether they are too strong because they don't have any jump fatigue. And so therefore, you're able to project so much further in terms of providing reinforcements and also in terms of response times and the number of times that you can respond due to there being no fatigue on jump gates. So I'd love to hear your comments about that. The general consensus is that, something could be done about them possibly, but the question is really what. So yeah, there you go. So Oh, and something else as well that I spotted, which I didn't expect in Cloudring, was that the other week I said, oh, look, French Connection are back. And as soon as I kind of said that, oops, sorry, I went into Fountain instead of, now I've gone into Outer Ring. Let's go to Cloudring. There we go. And I was saying, oh, look, French Connection are back. And apparently they're not anymore. So they've gone again. And I actually checked. And so if we actually look at the corporations, we'll see that basically it's Tutati, Raiders, and Dairy who kind of make up generally the bulk of French Connection. Keep flipping and flopping between the Initiative and French Connection. So you could see that they were originally in French Connection, then they went to the Initiative, then they went back to French Connection, and now they're back in the Initiative again. So it looks like they tried to revive French Connection, it didn't work out, and they folded back into the Initiative. Talking of the Initiative, one of the things to note with the Initiative is their numbers have been growing substantially over especially over the last year. If we look in even just the last few months, so I went too far there, you could see that this is just since kind of October. We've had some, what's that, 1,500 at a guess. I mean, there's obviously Industrial Mining and Mayhem, make a big up number of 800 just on their own. So it looks like 1,500 or more in the last couple of months, probably even the last month or so. So yeah, some really big growth there from the Initiative. I don't know whether it's all into PvP, as we know a couple of those groups are very much more focused on the industry side, but the Initiative does seem to be moving away from being kind of very PvP focused group to kind of being much more of an all-rounder group. And in fact, if you actually compare it to Karma Fleet, they're actually now bigger than Karma Fleet. Karma Fleet being the biggest corporation in Goonswarm Federation. So yeah, that's quite surprising there, and yeah, a change of feel for the Initiative, and we'll have to see whether that works out for them and if leadership can adapt to that kind of change of player structure. All right, so I didn't make a track of my Rorquals and Ratting Supers kills. Let's have a look. So that was my last episode on Tuesday 7th. So yeah, there's a fair bunch. So a lot of Rorquals are dying. In fact, it does to look up, to be honest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 19, 20, 21. 21, a quick count there. Rorquals, so yeah, that was definitely up because we were about a dozen before. And then Supers, I think Supers are still fairly rare. Yeah, so we still only had like 3 in the last week. One of those was actually not a ratting one. That was this one from Dock Workers, died on the structure. Although I couldn't figure out who it was fighting for. I was told it was defending, then I was told it was attacking. It was 0 on the structure. It all got very confusing. So yeah, we'll leave that one, I think. So that was it in terms of kind of the ratting Supers and Rorquals. And then I think that wraps it up for this week. I do have a couple of videos. Unfortunately, I didn't put them in my tabs. I forgot. I mentioned them on my Twitch channel last Friday. One is from Odin's Call. It's a heavy armor brawl, but it's got comms. I will link that in the description below. So do go and check that out. And the other one was CMMNN, which was WOMP, or Weapons of Mass Production. Kind of did like a propaganda thing that was very newsy, very well produced, which was worth a watch. It's 3 or 4 minutes long, and I will link that in the description below. Also, just so you know, there will not be a Twitch show this Friday. I have some family commitments and work commitments, etc., which means I won't be able to do it. I will try. If I can, then I will announce it at short notice. But for the time being, do not expect a Twitch show on Friday the 17th. And then my Twitch show the following week, because it's Christmas Eve and I have to go and see my mum, I will be doing the show on the Thursday, the 23rd of December. So hopefully I'll see you there for that. I'll see if I can make it for Friday. I'll do my best, but don't expect it. And as always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, and I will see you on the next one. All right, thank you. Bye.